2, 3, come on!
Hello everybody and welcome to today's stream. I am super happy to have you here, and today we are going to be learning some really fun things. Today, let's begin just by sharing my screen. And you guys hear my puppy mustache in the back. So today, my friends, we are going to be drawing animals. Today, we are going to be drawing animals, and we're going to be learning how to draw them really fun, really cute, and really simple. My last course that just released is going to be teaching you how to do all your animal companions, from little furry animals to little fishies to birdies to everything that has a pet denomination. And today, we're going to go over a handful of them, and you are going to choose what we draw for the most part. But today, we're going to begin by learning how to draw some really cute things that are on theme. And that is, we're going to be learning how to draw bunnies. So how about we learn to draw some bunnies today? Today's stream is going to be about an hour and a half. So if you want to come draw, go grab your sketchbook, go grab something to draw with. You don't need digital software like me. You're going to be able to learn if you just grab anything to draw with and anything to draw on. Now, all you need to do is learn how to draw basic circles. That's all you really need to learn to do with me, and we'll be able to build upon that, okay? So let's begin our lesson into the world of animal pets by learning how to draw our really little cute bunny companions. These guys, bunnies and stuff. Oh yeah, and if you stay till the end, if you're able to withstand my lessons for that long, which I think you will, you get 2 chapters of each of my books sent to you directly as a thank you for staying. So I have 2 books. I have an anatomy guide, and then I have an illustrator guide. And you get 2 chapters of each one of them just for staying with me. And you guys hear my puppy, he agrees. So today, let's draw bunnies, yeah? So the world of pets in general, the world of animals, is not incredibly difficult to navigate. There are very simple equations that we can apply when it comes down to our drawings to almost make the act of drawing animals a mathematical equation, which, based on having very good ability to replicate certain shapes, will give you the ability to come up with the structures for most animals. We're going to establish that in a handful of animals, and you're going to choose some of them that we're going to draw today. So let's begin into how we do that by applying that to one of the easiest little animals, and that is the bunny. The bunny in general, the anatomy of a bunny, is quite simple. They have a really big head, right? And then they have really big body comparison to their heads. So if their head is going to be, let's say, 1 unit, the entirety of their body is going to be another unit. So double whatever the size of the head is going to be the body. So if we just draw 2 circles, overlap them a little, we have the general body of a furry creature. Now, we got to get that illusion by removing the line in between. This is going to give us this little marshmallow shape, this little tiny squishy beanbag. It's going to have a little squishy part in the middle. This is going to happen a lot with animals. Animals do not have the neck structure that humans do. They don't have the same bones. Well, they have the same bone structures, but they don't have the same type of skin. So the skin in between here, for a human, it clings to our skin. It clings to our body. And then it goes around, kind of like a skin-tight piece of clothing. A lot of animals don't have that. They have the equivalent of a very baggy set of clothing instead of for their skin. So a lot of the times, they don't have that differentiation in the neckline. We give it to them by giving them little tussles on the side, and then we can make that illusion of the head being bigger or creating that. But it's not necessarily doing so in the construction stages. So whenever you're drawing little furry animals, all you have to do at first is overlap two shapes that are equally sized, and that's going to be your base for little bunnies. Now, I like to draw animals really cute. I don't like having to go into many details when I'm drawing just concepts and stickers and t-shirt designs or things that I just want to draw that are cute. So a lot of the times, the eyes are going to play a big factor. Instead of drawing eyes that are very human-like, which you still can, and it's going to make your characters look very cartoony and animal, like for a cartoon. I like to draw my little pets by drawing little dashes or little dots. Why? Because it just gives them a more non-humanoid or non-representative of like a character. So it just makes them look like a little background character. It doesn't make it look like it's a very super cartoony character or like a character from Looney Tunes. It just makes it like a little animal that's in the background, right? I don't need it to have all the style of it, of a big cartoony Disney character, but you can still do that because the structure is not changing. That will be a style choice. And for example, I prefer drawing them really cute, even if it's just bigger eyes. Giving them little highlights and stuff like that just makes them look so adorable to me. That is the optimal way for me to draw them. I love drawing like this. It's going to be my favorite way of doing it. Okay? The ears for the bunny and the eyes are going to fall onto the opposite sides of the character. If the eyes fall on the bottom side of the head, the ears are going to fall on the top side of the head. The ears are going to be quite simple. The ears, as you go around your circle, you can exit at, let's say, the midpoint of your circle. You go out and back in. Whenever you do that, you're going to give yourself the contour of the ear. You're going to give yourself the contour of something that has volume. The extra level of detail that you get comes from drawing a thin, and I mean this, a thick and a thin line. So the contour is thick, the inside will be thin. This will give you an illusion that generates the look of an ear. Now, you always do it from the inside, and then you make it thicker on the bottom. So thinner, thicker. It creates this little taper that gives you a really nice controlled illusion of an ear. You can always add little zigzags like this inside to make it look like it's fuzzy. If you keep the eyes underneath, you could draw cute little cartoony eyes if you wanted more humanoid type of characters, or if you wanted just more like background little animal type of thing. It would be more just little dots and maybe a little highlight. Before we get into the snouts, which are really, really simple, I would like to ask all of you to please name an animal that you struggle with that is their pet, or something that you would like to learn to draw better. The way that this works the best is if you are all engaged with me as we draw. If you tell me something that you are having difficulty with, how do you make bunnies look cute? Mine don't look super chubby. Okay, so if you want to make super chubby ones, these two circles that we have, right? We're gonna make them slightly different circles. We're gonna make one that's a little bit fatter on the bottom because we have distinguished that the top circle is our head and the bottom one's gonna be our body. So if we want a bunny that's nice and chubby, we can make its ears up or down too, by the way. Those little circles are beautiful because it gives you access to having mobility of your ears. So if it's a little chubby little bunny, remove a lot of that overlapping line. And then you have a really chubby body, maybe put his little feetsies in front instead of underneath them, right? By using perspective, we can move all the features on a little circle around the circle. So if we have a way to learn to do this, which is really simple, this is what we call a diagon. And that could come up with a whole other lesson about this. But this is going to be a very important shape that you need to learn. That is the concept of learning to draw a circle and then a circle that touches both ends. That's going to give you the front and the back of your shape. This gives you access to combining them and being able to come up with the front of your character. If it's a complex character like a bunny or an animal, and then being able to still think about where the backside is for like the tail or where the legs are going to go. Right? Being able to draw through your shape is incredibly important. It's a very useful skill to have, and it's something that you should practice quite often because it's something that will come up a lot. So if you wanted to draw little chubby bunnies, I would draw maybe the features of the face a little smaller so that everything else looks bigger. And then obviously a little carrot because he is a hungry bunny. But construction, learning to draw with basic shapes, the most important part is understanding how to see through them. Since they're basic shapes, you should be able to do this a little easier. It's not completely easy, and it's not going to be simple until when you start practicing a lot, but it's something that you can do and be able to understand. The ear, again, it's going to go around, come out, and come back. The edge of the ear is going to indicate where that's going to go. And now we can finally go into the snouts. My bunny looks like a tiny fox. How can I fix it? Ooh, okay. So that happens. The animals are going to have a lot of common traits, right? So if we take a little ear and we make it round, nice and round, like thicker, it's thin, thick, and then thin. So it goes nice and round and back. This is going to give us a bunny ear. If you draw it a little bit more triangular, it's going to give you the look of a fox or like anything that has a really big ear. So subtleties are very important. Understanding that curvature and spikiness are going to give you two different looks. You can still make a bunny with both of them, but you need to take into consideration how they taper. If it's thinner on the bottom, thinner at the edge, you're going to get more of the look of a bunny. If it's wider at the base, it's going to look more like a fox or a feline or like a canine, like a dog. So if you have wider ones, you're going to get more of the illusion of a fox or anything that has that sort of ears. But if you drew a little bit rounder, you'd get the illusion of bunnies. Also the snouts. The snout has to be considerably smaller for a bunny. If you draw anything longer, it's going to start looking like a different animal. So if you draw a big one, it's going to look like a little mouse. It's going to start looking like something different. But if you draw the snouts relatively small, it's going to give you more of the illusion of the animal that you want. How can I draw the ears when the head is tilted? So the ears are going to follow in this really, really cool diagram. Okay, I'm going to teach you ears like almost mathematically, and you will never forget this because it's really, really easy. What you're going to do is you're going to draw a circle. Okay, you're going to draw a circle. That circle is going to be split into 4. That's going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants. Okay? That is going to be separated into two very important sections. Number 3 is going to be your snout area. So that's where your snout's going to come out and come back in. Okay? Number 2 is going to be your ear area. So from here, you're going to consider this the inside of your ear. You're going to go outside and inside. This is going to give you a nice little triangle, or you can draw your ears coming down, or you can draw your ears really small, or you can do anything like that within that space. Okay? This is going to be also where the direction of your ears go. So if you have your ears, you can always draw them up. With other animals like elephants, you'll draw them outside. Right? So you're going to have the ability to draw your ears for pretty much most animals from there. So once we understand those two sections, it's going to be our snout section. And this is going to be our ear section. For something like, I don't know, bunnies, we want to use that, split into 4, use this quadrant, bring our ears up, back in, right? And then we create ourselves little bunny ears. Our snouts are going to be really small. So snout really small coming out and back in. This will give me the illusion of a bunny. The ear can be up, it can be down, it can be to the side, it can be front. You can twist it and turn it any way you want because the ears are very mobile. So now that we understand this little quadrant though, that's going to be how we actually benefit. Make the snout a little smaller so it looks more like the bunny one that we drew. Okay. And then we're just going to tilt this. So if we take a sphere, we tilt this a little bit. Right? This line is this line. This front line is this line. So if this comes out a little, then I can come back in. So I go out, back in, and back to the middle. That same profile line, I just draw it a little bit inside. This becomes my ear line. At the top of this line is where the ear came out and comes back in. So it goes out and comes back in. Do the same thing, going around my shape. This is going to give you access to learning a little bit more how your ears work. When you start combining both shapes, now you have access to learning how to move your little bunny. If you start tilting it more, guess what happens? So if you start tilting it, your ears start tilting based on that guideline. Your shapes would overlap a lot more, and you would have access to those other views. So you'd be able to rotate that little sphere around and be able to do that. So whenever you move this shape, this midline, essentially that's where your ears are, like a diadem, kind of like a Mickey Mouse ears, right? So if you learn to draw like a little sun with a diadem, you could draw your ears in any direction. It'll just be a matter of choosing which direction you want your ears, and then draw them in that direction. So you can just tilt them and twist them any way you want. Okay, so how can you draw a fluffy tail? A fluffy tail for like a bunny or a fluffy tail in general? If it's a fluffy tail in general, you would have, tails are really, really fun here. Let's just talk about tails for a second. Okay, so tails come from understanding your spine. So a character, like a human or, here, let's talk about a human for a second so you can identify it. You're going to draw a human by drawing a spine. We can go up and down from our spine, and that's going to give us our head, and it's going to give us our hip bones. Okay, this connects everything. So our head, our rib cage, and our hip bones are connected by our spine. Our legs come this way, and our arms come this way. still connected to our spine. Now, whenever we are drawing animals, the tail comes from this spine. So all we're going to do is we're going to rotate everything to the side. So instead of being vertical this way, we're going to draw a spine, our rib cage, some hip bones, and this is going to give us access to our head and our legs. Everything is going to come from there. All things come forward from there. Okay. This tail is just a direct connection from the spine. So depending on what type of tail you want to do, little tiny ones, little big ones, little fluffy ones, it's always going to come down to finding the outside contour of your body, the back end, and just following that down, and then coming back in for volume, regardless of what type of animals you are. If you have things like horses, and they have longer limbs, right? Or they have shorter limbs, and they're like little house cats and dogs and stuff, right? It doesn't matter what type of animal it is. The concept is going to be the same. You can even crew this to things like elephants and stuff, horses, right? Being able to draw that section of the body, and I'm running out of space, so that's why I'm drawing like a little bit compressed. But being able to draw a bunch of animals is going to be the same way. Humans, animals, they share very similar traits to each other. And if we learn how to identify them, it's going to be slightly different sometimes, right? Slightly different, aka they're just going to bend in different directions, but it's going to be very much the same body parts. We just need to learn to identify how to find them on each one of them so that we can use the knowledge that we find from one to the other. When we're twisting ears in different directions, we use that little diadem as a way to figure out the points, and then from there we can draw them in different directions so that we can draw the expressions of our animals the way that we want. Animals don't have a chin either, so that makes them a lot easier to draw. All right, any other questions? So ears, simple. We find the diadem, and then we go out and back in, right? So the ears and snout should be opposite sides of the head. Well, I mean, you have your head in the front. You have your snout coming out of, if you draw a little cross, this is a simple math equation you can do a cross, and then you go out and back in, depending on what type of snout you want. Now, the snout sometimes is angled, sometimes it's not. But this is going to be a very simple equation. And then another simple thing is wherever that little snout points, that's going to be where your eye goes. Wherever that little snout goes, that's where your eye goes. So if you point the snout and you make the snout come out here, guess where the ear is going to, or the eye is going to be? The eye is going to be right here. If I draw a character and their snout is up here, guess where the eye is going to be? It's going to be right there. Anatomy is a very funny thing. It's a very silly thing. It's very simple to predict. And once you understand a little bit of it, it makes your life a lot easier. Now, these little equations can be shifted up and down in order to be able to create different things. So in order to be able to create different animals, you need to know different variations. How to apply the 4-quadrant rule to a front view? Incredibly easy. So we divide that into 4, right? So I'm going to walk you through the process of, so if this is our midline, so this is our profile line, right? So this is where we draw our profile to make it easy. This midline, if we're drawing this as a front view, this is exactly this line. That profile line is that line. So whatever you draw here, all you need to do is give this a front, because this is just seeing it from the side. So you need to determine what's the shape that you're going to draw right here, right? What's the type of shape on the front that you want to draw? I like to draw little hearts or little type of like, it kind of looks like a Pac-Man ghost, right? So that I like to draw those shapes. And then I match exactly the same height. Wherever I drew my nose, I match that exact height. Wherever this line goes, well, guess what? That's where my eye goes. In a front view, it's exactly the same thing. The quadrants still divide all my face. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The bottom quadrant is that quadrant right here. From a profile, this quadrant, this whole section is this section. So if this goes out and in my eye, you have this little section right here that you can't technically see from this side. So that's where you add your little scruff, your little, right? But this is behind this big circle. This would be your cheekbone. Okay, that would be all your cheekbone area. Then you would have your fluff, and then you would still have your ear in this quadrant, which would fit behind this section. How would you draw the snout of a bunny? Oh, I'll do that. Our ear goes up and down, and then we have access to our ear behind it. So this section is behind this whole entire forehead area. So you wouldn't see it from the front. So you only see this and this. This sticks out. This sticks out. And that's how you would do it. When you're drawing a bunny, bunnies are cute. Bunnies are super simple. Most bunnies, all you got to do is draw a little tiny snout. Most of the time, if you want to draw them cute, draw a little triangle that's not very heavy. Don't draw the line super heavy because it takes away from it. It gives it more depth, right? The thicker the line, the more depth something has. So if you draw a little nose like this, it's going to have a lot less depth, making it look daintier. If you draw it thicker, it's going to make it look like a much thicker one, like a little bear or something like that, right? So understanding your thick and thin lines play a huge role in understanding how that works. So we go around, we draw a little thing like that. Little triangle can be it. Little tiny, tiny triangle inside, and you can divide this with a little V in the front. And that's normally more than enough to draw little bunnies. At different levels too. If you wanted to draw more cartoony, like a more detailed one, it would be a little tiny rounded out triangle. And then I would just cap it in like that at the edge, drawing a really thin nose and then overlapping a line a little bit. That to me would create the illusion of a little snout for a bunny. And I would make it really small on the face so that it would look like that. Again, this front quadrant is going to indicate the top of the nose and between the eyes. This behind it, you're going to have your ears. So your ears are going to come from this quadrant, go back out, and come back in. You can make them round, you can make them flat, you can make them any way you want. Okay? And then behind this midline, you would have whatever little fluff your cheek would have. But it would be coming from that back quadrant. From a 3/4 view, here you have your nose, you'd have the side, your eye, all this would be up to here. You wouldn't see anything past here. Your ear would be behind that, and the fluff on the side of your face would be right there too. Okay? Does that make sense? Snout animals from 3/4 are hard. How do you make them look not so flat? Okay, so when we're talking about 3/4 views, a lot of the times we are going to have to take into consideration slightly overlapping shapes. What do I mean by that? If we divide this into quadrants, right? But our front view or mid view is going to be right here as a 3/4 place, right? 3/4. Anything that comes out from there is going to be equivalent to whatever you take out as a profile. If you just draw your profile and then you just take that exact length and then just draw it inside, just draw it on that line. Exactly the same thing. Draw it on that line and give it a little bit of girth because now you need to have a front. Okay, you need to give it a front. This didn't have a front. It was getting covered. The moment that you rotate it, you compensate for that exact length by giving it a little bit of girth inside. this line still contains your eyes. So when you're drawing 3/4, you extend that snout out as much as as much as you would with your 3/4 and stuff, and then you give it a front view. You give it a little tiny space in the front so that you have a surface, because you didn't see the surface from a profile. This is flat. This, when you bring it into space, need a little bit of depth. You do that by overlapping your lines inside and creating little beanbags. And that's a very simple way to be able to do that. It doesn't matter how long or how short you are. That's normally a very simple way to be able to do that. Like, there's animals of all kinds, and even humans have that same thing. The longer, the bigger you do it, you get different effects, right? So if you do it minimally, it's going to look like a character that has less, like, little lippy things. What are they called? Jowls? I think they're jowls. Whenever you're drawing a little puppy or something like that, and they have like the big things on the side, they have like saggy lips, saggy cheeks and stuff. Yay! But yeah, whenever you're drawing 3/4, make sure that your snouts have a little bit of a front and that you have a differentiation between one side of the mouth and the other. Be it with an overlap or a little divot, it's going to make your animals look a lot better. Yeah. All right, any other questions? We have a bunch of time and all the questions in the world. I have a corgi, but it feels very hard to illustrate her. So corgis are actually quite fun. Corgis look like little potatoes, right? So little potatoes, and their heads are going to be really big on their heads. So we're going to draw a little potato in a little circle. Now we're going to divide that into quadrants. You got to pay attention to how big their forehead is compared to the bottom of their head. That is where that midline would be. It's not for a corgi, would come out, come back in, give myself a little nose, right? My quadrants tell me where my ears are going to go. My eyes, my little patterns. And then they tend to have really big booties. So they are known for having big heart-shaped booties. So we just draw a big heart-shaped booty. We go around the back to find the outside of my leg, choose how wide how thick my thigh is going to be, and I just draw my little feetsies from that. Let's see. What type of feetsies do corgis have? They're like really chunky, huh? They're like super chunky, so. But it's not bulky. They're not bulky. They're literally just chunks. So I'm just going to simplify it to the extreme. I would just do that. Honestly, I would just do that. That would be the equivalent of me drawing a corgi. Don't close these lines so that it looks a little chunkier, and then choose color patterns for whatever their skin is. If they have like certain patterns, like their booty is like a certain way or something, you can do that. Little things like colors will play a big role when it comes down to drawing most heads that are very specific. And a lot of reference will do you a lot of good. But being able to draw your little petsies, it's just about observation, taking into consideration all those little key points that I mentioned, and then just paying attention to their patterns. You might be able to draw them from even just simple shapes. How do you draw open mouth for snouts? So whenever you have a snout, right, you have this guy, for example. If we turn him a little bit to the side, we're going to have access to a little divot. That little divot is going to give me my upper mouth. That likes to go underneath my eye. Right? If we go underneath my eye, the snout is going to go and it's going to want to go underneath the eye. You got to leave a little space between the eye and here because you have cheeks. Animals still have the same anatomy that we do. It's just a little bit different. Okay. And then from there, once you find one point, you have to remember that your mouth is curvy. So you're going to have two sides. You're going to have one side, the other side. You're going to have the front of your mouth, and you're going to have the two bottom parts connect. So this is what ends up happening at the bottom of your face. You end up having one side, the other side, and then you connect them. And you have access to drawing little animals' snouts. Becomes a really simple thing. But before we continue, let me talk to you a little bit about my course and what I have come up with in order to be able to teach you all how to draw amazing little pets, okay? Let me teach you a little bit about what you're going to learn. So, first of all, I'd like to thank the people over at 21 Draw for helping me put together all this beautiful class. I have come up with an entire course to help you all understand how to create everything that you need to draw your pets and your cute little animal companions. This course will teach you everything from the animal basics, the basic anatomy, the distinction between humans and animals, and then from there we go into everything from snouts, anatomy, and then into every single type of animal that you have. Okay? We have birds, we have furry creatures, we have dogs and cats, we have fishes, creepy crawlies, reptiles, and amphibians. And with that knowledge, you should be able to take it and not just create your own animal companions, but you're going to be able to create every sort of animal you can. Okay? Now, you can go over to 21 Draw, and you'll see this big banner at the top. And thanks to being Easter right now, you're going to have a gigantic sale. So you can get 2 memberships for the price of 1. And if you act now, because this ends in about 15 hours. So this ends soon. So make sure to take advantage of it because it's endless learning. And I have multiple courses that you can use in order to be able to get better. Not just that, but I have anatomy, and I also have intro-level classes to help you understand how to start coming up with beautiful characters and creatures. And, you know, stories and everything, and making your characters come alive. But if you're interested in learning more, this is a fantastic way to do so. And this animal course just got released. So it has so much for you, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to help you. Okay? But now, let's go back to drawing, and let's go back to teaching you guys something. All right, we are back at our doodles. What happened? All right, I just squished everything. There you go. All right, let's continue on with the questions. Can I draw other animals with what I learned in this course? Yes, the course in itself is about animals, but pets, but the knowledge inside will be incredibly useful for anybody that wants to learn how to draw animals or creatures in general. It's a lot about anatomy and how that anatomy gets represented in both humans and animals. What's going on? Why is the screen all like wonky? No, I don't know. There you go. Okay. Can I draw other animals? Yes. So with what you learn here, let's say that you learn the lesson on reptiles, and you learn how crocodiles and geckos and lizards and stuff like that work, right? By learning anything like that, you would be able to take that knowledge and turn it into things like dinosaurs and Godzilla. right? Being able to take something and create something from it is what we are trying to do as artists. We're trying to learn how to create different elements with different things. What's going on here? The ratio of the screen is so weird ever since I shared it. What's going on? There you go. Okay. All right. So yeah, that is going to be consistently the way that we can use that. If you learn how to draw, let's say, dogs, right? You learn how to draw dogs, you'd be able to draw wolves. Mostly because it's just very similar patterns, just applied differently. And if you can draw wolves, well, you can probably draw things like werewolves. With a little creativity, you can take that knowledge and turn it into more creative things that might have more fantasy type of appeal to you, right? You don't have to stick to necessarily drawing them cute. You can start applying a lot of detail, a lot of texture, and start having fun drawing these as characters for, comics, or characters for a story, or in general, just as cool illustrations. So you can take that knowledge and be able to apply it in many, many different ways. It's just going to be up to your creativity as to what you can do with it. Right? What is it that you are able to do once you learn this skill to a very competent level? What is it that you're going to be able to do? It really does depend on your ability to be creative and your ability to take basic shapes and turn them into something cool. That comes with a lot with reference. So if you're a person that struggles with drawing from memory, a lot of reference work will help at first, and eventually you won't need references. A Cocker Spaniel. Let me see if I remember what a Cocker Spaniel is. Is it the ones that are like the Lady and the Beast? Beauty and the Beast. Not the Lady and the Tramp, right? It's like the ones that are a little fuzzy. They have like super, super fuzzy ears. I don't know if their snouts are that necessarily, but I think they have similar patterns. Again, if you're going to open their mouths hinge from one side to the other, and they don't have a chin. So it's really easy to draw them. Let's see, erase this one and let's draw, like, I don't know. So one of my favorite ones that I have, like, dogs are really easy because there's such a high variety of dogs that all you gotta really do is understand the snout section. So that with a little triangle at the front, the triangle will point to wherever the 3/4 point is. So if you draw the profile here, this is gonna be the front. If you draw the triangle pointing in a little bit, you can give it a little bit of a divot, and then you can draw 3/4. So a lot of the times, learning how to rotate your character is just about learning how to control this little section. And it doesn't matter what type of snout or what type of body you're going to do, right? It's going to always be very similar cases. Even if you do change the size of the snout, the size of the eyes, the size of the styles, all that stuff is not going to change the way things hit. So being able to draw your little animal companions in different stylizations is actually quite simple. You just need to learn to apply that knowledge, but apply it in a way that makes sense for that one style. Now, any other questions? Could you draw an animal with curly hair? Sure. So if you draw a little puppy, we want a little puppy with curly hair, all we draw is the structure first. Let's draw the structure. And then instead of drawing lines that are nice and straight, we can just do it like little clouds. And then I have myself a poodle. I have myself a bunch of variations of dogs that are normally really fluffy. I don't have to do much to make them happen, and I don't have to do much to make them look like that. It's just about learning the structure of the animal and then just applying different line work. So if I wanted this corgi to be fluffy, I just have to use little fluffy lines. Again, we're not drawing humans, so if you did that to a human, it'd be really different, right? You'd have like a human, and if you just did that to the sides, it'd look kind of weird. But it'd still look like a fluffy character, right? So if you did that, it just looked like you have a really fluffy coat or something on. So the same concept applies to something like an animal. If you draw your lines, right, it's going to look like the animal structure, and then you can use texture to be able to draw things like hair. So you can make an animal look really fluffy by just using different types of lines for your structure. Does that make sense? All right, next question. How to draw fur. So fur is a really fun topic to teach because it teaches you the concept of zigzags. The concepts of zigzags is going to be a very, very, very important one to learn if you want to learn to draw anything like fur. So zigzags in general need to be mastered as a basic shape. It's almost as important as learning to draw straight lines and straight circles and stuff. As much as you need to know that, you need to know how to draw zigzags. Why? Because zigzags give you the easiest thing ever, foliage. Foliage gives you access to drawing depth really quickly. If you have issues drawing trees, if you have issues drawing plants, if you have issues drawing landscapes, zigzags can help you understand that. Because all landscapes is just zigzags. And maybe one day I'll do a course on this. But being able to draw different zigzags give you access to depth really quickly. This, used on animals, is used on more like a little circle, and then you do little zigzags around the circles. This is going to teach you the concept of making something look fuzzy. Making fuzzy things look fuzzy is how we make our little animal companions look like they have fur. Okay? Our little cute animal companions need fur, and that fur is indicated by doing little zigzags. Those little zigzags are going to give you access to long fur, short fur, and all that stuff as well. So let's say you have a basic little animal, a dog or whatever. Okay. And the length of their body, or their body parts, are relevant because we can just draw long hair regardless of the length of a body. You can make super fuzzy things. Okay. Now he kind of looks like Jolteon. But you can also make them really small. So once you have the concept, it's just going to be depending on what type of fur you want. If you want really tiny fur, you can draw really small fur. Or if you want it even smaller for, like, I'd say dogs that don't really have fur that's really long, you don't draw that zigzags. You just draw little tiny, you draw this, and then you draw little tiny indications of fur by just doing little tussles instead of doing the whole thing. So there's very different variations of this. You can draw zigzags of very different qualities, different lengths, different spikiness levels, and create the illusion of different types of hair. These are still zigzags. Curvies, those are zigzags. You're just doing them in a curvy form, like a spring. So when you do that, you get furry. When you do these, you get shaggy. When you do these, you get slightly less detailed hair. So just fur, but not quite any detail or anything. And if you do these thin lines inside of thick lines, if you draw thick lines and then you draw thin lines, it gives you the illusion of detail inside. So you don't have to do everything the same thickness. It doesn't look right. Thick lines for volume, thin lines for detail. So you can draw all your fur and all that thing with volume, and then all the detail, draw them with thinner lines, and you're going to get a much, much cleaner illustration. Okay? Just understanding the concept of depth is really important too. Does this course teach you how to draw a capybara? Well, capybaras aren't necessarily pets. They're not necessarily the most knowable pets, but I'll teach you how to draw a capybara real fast. I think capybaras have like their heads on top. I'd have to look at reference, but very, very simple capybara. Right, so you could use the knowledge from this lesson, take the one from the guinea pigs that I teach you how to draw guinea pigs. So I teach you how to draw a guinea pig. That's going to be a very similar shape. Instead of the face being small, you make the face big, and you give it a nice big hug. And that's going to give you a nice little capybara body. Little ears. And capybaras have a really long, they have really long legs. They just don't show them, but they're very long legs. It's kind of creepy. Like I saw one getting into a shower, and it was like, kind of like owls. Owls have a really, really long body. Like comparison to their bodies, like they have that, and then when they stretch their legs, it's like considerably longer than how they normally are seen. So owls are normally like this, but when they stretch their legs, they're super weird because they stretch out so far. Any other questions? Anyone? I always have problems with cheek area, the fluff jawline and perspective. So that we're going to go back down to our quadrants, right? Once we understand the quadrants, it becomes a lot easier to understand this stuff. So once we understand that our head for any animal is going to be a quadrant. 1, 2, 3, 4. From a profile, we have our snout line, come back out, come back in. You close it up. This back part is our fluff/jowl line. Okay, this is where we draw all that little fluff that we normally draw in our animals. Like the side panels, the things that stick out, all that stuff comes from this little area. When we start rotating that area in space, we have our snout coming out, coming back in, right? This is our eye line, this is our snout line. And then this, we just have to measure how way from the top we're drawing this stuff. So if we have this line, those guidelines already teach me that. So if you guys want to, make sure to click the little orange link here as well. You guys are going to see banners that are going to give you massive discounts. So if you see that and you want to take advantage of that, click on it. This is going to be your gel line. So whatever sticks out here would stick out here. Okay. As you start learning how to rotate these things in space, you're going to just follow the guidelines. You're going to follow your quadrants, you're going to follow your shapes out, and you're going to know from this midline a little bit lower, going to draw that coming down. And as you get more confident about this stuff, as you learn how to map your shapes a little bit better in space, you're going to be able to rotate these in a lot more ways. Okay? You're going to have a lot more fun because you're going to be able to not have to double think or anything. You'll be like, oh, if I draw my quadrants this way, my mouth is going to be this way. This is going to be one section, second section. That's my jowls. This is my ears. And my eye always follows the snout line. So as you get better at it, you'll be able to push that to be able to create really cool things that are not necessarily just always what I teach you. You're going to be able to apply your own creativity to these things and eventually be able to draw your own things the way that you want, but you'll be able to do it a little bit more accurate. Okay, so the little fluff line comes in that back quadrant of your drawings. So that's how you control that in perspective. When you're looking up, when you're looking down, you're going to get that quadrant, and then your fluff is in the back. Regardless of whatever position or angle that you're looking at. So quadrant, fluff. How can I draw a ferret? So ferrets are going to combine elements of your mammals, and it's going to combine elements of your snakes. Yeah, snakes. It's kind of weird. So imagine that you're drawing a mammal, like a bunny that we drew, right? So we're going to draw a circle. Right? We're going to draw little quadrants, and we're going to come up with a little snout, because ferrets don't really have a big snout. We're going to have little eyes, and we're going to give them little ferret ears. Okay? Now, the body of a ferret is almost like that of a snake. They're just long. They're so long. So if you take the lesson that you learn about the snakes, you're going to learn how to draw your shapes twisting around like ribbons. Okay? Instead of drawing the snake features, draw a little fuzziness and open up the lines in your drawing. Connect them. This is going to give you access to drawing something a little bit more slender, right? A little bit slender, and you can draw the arms and the legs like you would a hamster or a little dog, and you have access to ferrets. I personally don't like ferrets very much. I had some when I was younger, and they were so stinky. They were so stinky, like probably some of the stinkiest animals that I have ever had in my life. And it was an experience. They do like jumping in noodles and stuff like that. So they love like little encounters where they can run like little ball pits and stuff like that. They love that stuff. I struggle with drawing snakes. Do I teach that in the course? I believe I do. I believe snakies are in there alongside with. So snakies and lizards and amphibians, I believe, are in the course. So you will learn how to do really cool things with depth. I like making sure that people understand what they're drawing. So you're going to have a really nice understanding of anatomy and the shape structure that you need to be able to draw them in fun ways. Guys, things like snakes and lizards, they come in so many different ways. Again, there's a lot of variety, and a lot of it is going to come from what kind of animal of that trait do you want to create. Right? Do you want to create a really cute one? Do you want to create really more detailed ones? Right? Depends on what is it that you want to create. You can create a bunch of varieties. Once you understand the structures, everything else just becomes like a game. You get to have fun because styles are so varied, and you can control them better with your foundations. So that's what I essentially teach you. I teach you your foundations through animals. I'm sneaky. I hide all the super important lessons inside of our structures of our simpler lessons. So by the end of this course, you'll not just be able to draw animals, but you'll be able to draw animals, creatures, and mostly anything that has to do with anatomy of animals. Then later on, you can turn that knowledge into things like dragons and cool fantasy characters that you really like. Right? The knowledge is transferable to different things. So once you understand how one works, guess what? This is just a bigger version of this. Okay. What are the basic tricks that you need to practice for animals? Okay, trick number 1. Split a pizza slice into 4. You're gonna do this. Snouts go out, come back in, and you don't have a chin. So you just go out and in. That's it. Your necks are gonna go slightly to the side. Your ear falls on the second quadrant. And your jowls fall on the fourth quadrant. Understanding these quadrants gives you access to really cool things. Once you understand that basic structure, you can apply that to absolutely any sort of animal you want. Because most animals are structured the same way. Most animals are created from very similar anatomy. It's just very slight differences that we actually have. And that's what this course aims to teach you. It aims to teach you how to take the name knowledge, the same concepts, and apply them to different ways so that you can learn how to do every sort of animal. Not just cats and dogs and stuff, but being able to do fun things for yourself. Okay? Understanding how to draw a variety of animals, including fish, birds, and all that is very important. Understanding how each one of them work and how we can learn to benefit from that knowledge is incredibly important. Because sometimes in your illustrative career, you're going to need to be able to do these things. You're going to need to be able to do that. Oh, I think I just missed a question. Somebody asked something, so if you guys want to repeat that, that'd be great. But yeah, a lot of these concepts are very similar. Will you teach how to draw dogs and cats in the course? I struggle with their differences. Yeah, we teach a very, very good lesson on cats and dogs. Learning how to draw cats and dogs is going to be mostly about the sizing of their features. If you want to draw more of a cat, you're going to draw the features a lot smaller because they don't have that gigantic snouts and they don't have big foreheads, not big forehead muscles and stuff like dogs have. A lot of cats, especially when you're drawing them in a cuter way, are going to be much, much less detailed in general than dogs. Dogs have longer snouts. Cats, same ears, smaller snouts. So that's going to be one of the biggest differences between them. The moment that you elongate the snout, it becomes a canine. Cats don't have big snouts. So if you're drawing the snout relatively long, that is probably why your cats and your dogs are looking very similar to each other. All right, any other questions? Okay, someone asked, how did you find your style, Rod? Well, my style is not necessarily, your style is not necessarily what you think. And we don't really touch upon this in the course, but I would love to give you guys a little bit of important knowledge. Your style comes from 3 parts of you. Your style comes from your understanding of your dexterity aka how well you can draw your things. So your dexterity, think of yourself like an RPG character, like a D&D character, right? Your dexterity is the way that you handle your weapon, aka your tools, your weapon, like your hand-eye coordination. How is it that you can use those tools to your advantage, right? If you don't have much knowledge about how to use a pencil, you can't really do much with a pencil. If you don't have much knowledge of a pen or a Wacom tablet or anything, you can't do much with them. So understanding your tools and what you can do to create more consistent shapes and structures is going to be what your dexterity is. Understanding that you have to learn to create consistent shapes. Your style needs that. And your style also needs your imagination. Your imagination is going to be where most of your thoughts and ideas come from. So if you don't have a happy mind, you don't have the ability to draw very much. Your style is going to be dependent on what you love. So if you like comics, you're going to probably do more comic stuff. If you like anime, you're probably going to draw more anime stuff, right? If you like things like, I don't know, novels or kids' books, you're going to be more focused on drawing really cute little adorable things, right? It's going to be much more of a, in terms of what you want. You got to build this though. Your imagination isn't built overnight, and it's not just given to you. You have to learn to develop it. And then the last part is all your knowledge. And the reason that you're here today is to understand how to do the things easier by learning from a different person. You come to 21 Draw for that sort of stuff, right? We have a bunch of teachers that are able to teach you a lot of different variety of things. So your style is going to come from also an understanding of knowledge. So this is where your basic perspective and your theories and your categorical like methodologies and all that stuff, right? All your tips and tricks and stuff come from this section. Understanding how to control that and learn to use that to your advantage is very important. Learning how to do anatomy, learning how to do things like structure for animals, all that stuff is in this category. All this that we're learning today that you would learn in the course will add this aspect of your career. It will also increase your dexterity. And if you impart a little bit of your imagination, there's nothing that you can't really come up with. There's going to be endless amounts of characters, stories you can do. You just need to learn how to control those three things. And that's how your style gets developed. How is your new pets course different from the designing for fun animal characters? So the designing fun animal characters is going to be how to take things into production. So like what I did to hide in that one course, designing fun animal characters is going to teach you how to come up with characters, right? How to draw characters, but it's not just going to teach you how to draw the character really fun. No. That course is meant to teach you how to take your characters and turn them into products, how to make them into usable things. Like I teach you how to come up with the characters, but I also teach you in that course how to make it into something, how to start using them to be able to make more out of it, right? So it's going to be much more than just learning how to draw an animal character. It's not necessarily about how to draw animals. It's just about how to draw more fun things that you can use later on as well. And then this one is just heavily focused on anatomy of characters. So in this one, we're focusing on the structures, we're focusing on the anatomy, we're focusing on the elements that are going to make animals certain animals. So we focus heavily on just the ones that are pets, but we're going to be focusing heavily on understanding how those structures work so that you can eventually create really fun things. So if you like hermit crabs, well, eventually you'll be able to make super cool, creepy hermit crabs or really cool ones because you understand the concept of the first ones. So if I teach you super simple, basic things, you can later on dissect those things into cooler elements for yourself. So you learn the basics so that you can learn to draw more complicated later. What's your favorite animal to draw? So if you take the parts of two different animals I love the most, okay? So I like duckies. I like drawing ducks because this little shape in the front that looks like a Pringle gives you a little beak. And that has always been a super simple way to draw little duckies, okay? So I like drawing duckies. But I also like drawing things like beavers, and I like drawing a combination of both. So if I have a beaver, right, and I have a duck, and you combine them, what do you think you get? You get one cute little animal called a platypus. And that is my favorite animal to draw. It is, quite frankly, the cutest animal in the world. It is the weirdest animal in the world, and I relate to it heavily. Not fitting in, but being able to do what other people do quite well. So, in my opinion, that is my little animal companion. And I love drawing them as much as I can. Followed closely by pandas. I like pandas a lot too. But to me, a platypus will always have a special place in my heart. Ooh, my pet drawing courses. Yeah, we have the rats too. So we talk about mice and we talk about rats. So we talk about rats being slightly on the edgier side. So rats are normally portrayed as the slightly more creepy version of rodents. So we established in that class, I believe we established the concept between soft and hard characters. So if we have a softer shape, we can draw more like a mouse. Okay. When you start drawing more jaggedy lines, it looks more like a rat. Also with the fur, if we draw more zigzags, this gives me more of the illusion of a raggedy rat. If I draw more smooth shapes, aka little small zigzags, it can give the illusion of a mouse. So yes, we do go over those. They're animals and they're pets. We go over most animals and pets. And again, I hide so much cool like anatomy stuff in there for you. And you'll never know that you're learning anatomy until you're like, oh, I just learned all this anatomy. Huh. Wow. And that is why my courses do well. I like making you proud of yourself as quickly as possible. How long is the 2-for-1 deal? Well, if you go onto the website, it's going to be going on for about like 15 hours. So if you want the 2-for-1 special, it's going to be like an Easter thing. So if you want to do it, you might as well do it right away. Because once that deal is done, you might not be able to get it again for a long time, and might as well get it. 21 drawing, like memberships are actually really affordable for what you get. It's an insane detail. It's an insane like deal. Like the amount of knowledge you get for that is crazy, but you have to put your effort in though, right? You have to put your effort in. You can't just sign up to the classes without watching them and expect to get better. You have to put your effort in, and that's the part that you have to be accountable for. As a teacher, I can teach you a lot. I can teach you all my tips and tricks, but if you don't put the effort in, all that that doesn't mean anything. So a lot of it comes down to accountability for yourself and what do you want to get out of your career. Do you want to be a better artist? Then focus on everything. If you want to just have fun, hey, that's also a good thing, right? But you need to have a focus. You need to understand that your purpose and your focus are going to be tied together to your success. And again, just a quick reminder on the bottom. If you stay here till the end, you're going to get a couple free chapters from my, from me having, I have helped and collaborated on a bunch of books with 21 Draw. So if you want to get some free chapters, you stick around. All right. Any other questions? How do you draw paws? Oh, paws are cool. Okay, so pawsies, right? Pawsies are really fun. So let's take a basic hand. If we take a basic hand is going to consist of an index, a pinky, a thumb, and a wrist. Okay? In between, I'm going to have 2 more fingers. So a basic hand is quite simple. You just go around, outside, inside, outside, inside, outside, inside, outside. Okay? When it comes down to paws, what you do is when you find these little knuckle lines, you're going to make them bigger. Eliminate the finger and just make those bigger. When you do that, you end up with the shape of a paw. And draw your little pads in the bottom, draw your claws. But in general, drawing paws come from drawing the palm of your hand or whatever the palm is to the wrist, and then drawing big fuzzy fingers. If you do that, you have access to drawing paws. If you draw them in different shapes, you can draw the bottom of your palm coming to your foot. You can draw it by easily figuring out two of them right away. You can find the left side and the right side really quickly, okay, because they attach to the edge of your hand. From there, you can draw two. You need one. Normally, it's not over here by the thumb. It's normally up here. They have like a weird position for their little tiny thumb. And then you have two more in the front. So they overlap. And now you have yourself the elements of things like paws. Okay? Your foot. Draw one on this side. Draw them bigger so that you can be cuter. Right? So you can see the difference. So you can easily draw a bunch of paws like that. So when you're drawing your puppies, you draw your legs, draw your whatever the palm section is, and then draw 4 little fingers. Draw some fur, and you have yourself access to little paws. The wrists and stuff like that sometimes go in different directions, right? But it's going to be a very similar concept. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you're walking, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have access to being able to manipulate that very much like a hand because they are pretty much like hands. Again, the only difference between a hand and a paw is just that their fingers are long and paws are wide. Right? But other than that, for the most part, it's very similar. All right, next question. What's a good way to keep body proportions in check while drawing? So I'm gonna assume it's for animals since they're talking about animals. So when it comes down to proportions for animals, it's going to be really, really different because a lot of animals, let's say animals like birds, right? They come in such different variations that sometimes their bodies are connected to, right? Sometimes their bodies are connected to their necks, for like parakeets and stuff like that. Most of them are kind of like little jelly beans. You don't really have much of a differentiation. When it comes down to things like vultures or flamingos or anything like that, they have such a big structure and change that is a wide difference. So there is very, very much such a wide thing. So it has to be narrowed down a little. Now, the one thing that I would suggest is that you start with a very basic circle and block shape. Most animals, when you start drawing them cartoony and stuff, you can start with a basic block and then just carve out their heads and their little bodies from those blocks. Okay? Learning how to draw a circle and a block can be incredibly useful if you want to learn how to draw simple animals. The quadrant system helps you understand where your snouts are supposed to go. And the rest of the body gets broken down into 2 parts, your feet and your arms. You can point those in different directions. Again, they're very similar to humans in general, but we don't have that distinction of the neck. So instead of having necks like we do, like we have the length of the neck, we don't do that with animals because that looks super weird. Drawing that with animals is super weird, but when we take away that and we just draw a block, it becomes much more how they work. So if we can learn to draw most animals from a block and a circle with quadrants, you have access to endless possibilities. You don't have to even stick to pets. Most of the time, you can start drawing pretty much any sort of animal like this. So this is going to be something that's really useful for you. Just understanding that concept is very nice. When you learn that you can apply that to not just common household dogs and elements, but you can apply that to pretty much any other animal, it becomes incredibly useful. But it's really nice to be able to draw pretty much all your pets incredibly simple once you learn this stuff. What shapes do you use for drawing the front view of animals? Again, a circle and a box will give you most of the shapes you need to be able to draw animals on the front, from the side. When you draw a circle in a box, depending on where that box is, you can consider it the entirety of the body and just carve things out of them. Right? Or you can build upon them. But it's a very simple way to be able to structure most animal bodies. In that, again, it doesn't have to rely itself just purely on like big bears or something. Something like a mouse is very similar. Okay? A lot of the times, it's just about how we identify the scale of things. But it doesn't matter what we draw, that's going to be a very similar concept regardless. You can have different types of mice, you can type different dogs, everything. I think the ones that are only a little bit different are reptiles in general. Those are the ones that have a much more difficult structure because they have a little bit more fluidity to their bodies. So things like lizards and stuff like that have, like, their structures are very similar, but they extend much more because of their tails. Kind of like a really long, like, winded bird. You'd have a little bit different anatomy because their bodies just move in different directions in different ways. So any other questions? Does your course go over spiders? Yes, we go over spiders as well. So understanding spiders is really, really fun because a lot of people just overdraw them. Whenever you're drawing spiders, you have to think of two major groups. Your thorax, aka the back, the booty of your snake, or your tarantula, your arachnid. And then the front is going to be divided into two sections. You're going to have your eyes, and your mouth, and then this is going to be your thorax. The thorax is going to be where most of your elements come in. That's going to be where your little pawsies come in, right? So you're going to have 4 on each side. They consist of 3 sections and a hook. 1, 2, 3, and a hook. 1, 2, 3, and a hook. They overlap, and they create little spider bodies. So when you start drawing them a little bit lighter, you end up in a situation where you can move them around. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And a hook. And once you learn that basic structure, everything else just becomes a little easier. All right. I saw a question, but I think I missed it. Or did it just go away? If you make them fuzzy, they look like tarantulas. But then you start learning the concept, right? The concept is you have one big circle, one little circle, and the thorax. So this one has all your elements. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Actually, this one, would this one be the one that goes this way? I think so. 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. When you want to do your Spider-Man symbols and stuff like that, that's a very easy way to do it. So yes, we do go over spiders. Any other questions? There is one more reminder, okay? I need you all to think, if you want to get the membership, you might as well sign up now, get a membership for free, and then you can gift it to someone else that you really think that would benefit from it. So if you take advantage of the sale, you're going to be able to help someone else become a better artist as well. Now, don't do this, right? Don't make them layered. You have to keep those two shapes together. You draw lots of animals very quickly. How did you learn this? I was very, very lucky to have worked at the San Diego Zoo. So I worked at the San Diego Zoo for about 4 years. During that time frame, they make you, I was doing caricatures. So they make you draw people with every sort of animal that they love, right? So you learn to draw really cute little versions of most animals. Things like koalas, things like pandas, stuff like that. You'd find really gimmicky ways to be able to draw them so that you could draw the people with them really quickly. Now, that led to understanding a lot of really simple things, like most animals can be drawn from a box type of situation. Right? Once you understand the concepts behind it, it becomes quite simple to be able to envision those patterns, those elements inside of things like boxes. This took a little bit of time to do, but once I learned how to do that, I could draw anything from a panda to giraffes and stuff like that inside that space, because then I'd be creative. I'd learn how to be creative with those things, and it also helped me with sales. So if I was drawing things like giraffes within the size of a box, I knew that all my drawings could be finished really quickly. Right? I don't have to ever draw outside of a box, so my layouts for characters would be exactly the same. And it was really, really fun to be able to do that. And to me, it's just like kind of like almost like bragging rights to be able to do that sort of stuff. So it was really fun to do that. Learned a lot, spent a lot of time researching, and then I spent that time trying to teach people how to do it. Because when I was doing that sort of job, I was also one of the trainers. I was one of the people that trained other people to do that so that they could have better sales, so that we could make more money. And I taught them everything that I could do and teach in order to make those characters look really lively and fun for their guests, which is what led to more sales and the ability to draw and sell more things. So a lot of the features that you see are going to be just based on animals that already exist, like pets, and you just modify them to that. Do you start with a circle with frogs too? Yeah. Circles, split them into half, and then you have your eyes, you have your mouth, you have your body. The back goes to your back legs. The front goes to your front legs, and your eyes for frogs are very important. Eyes for frogs are literally this. Rabbit, rabbit. So yes, we do go over frogs, and we go over how to draw amphibians and most reptiles. So circle frogs, for sure. Because I'd split them in half, and you're gonna fit most of their heads into half of it, and the rest of their body into the back end. I know at first it seems like you don't have enough space, but overlapping the shapes is what gets you there. All right. Any other questions? It seems like we are running out of time. Or are we like still on time? I think we're still on time. How do I draw a cat sleeping curled up? So cat sleeping curled up. So kitties, super simple. If you draw a kitty, you can draw him as two little overlapping shapes. He's curled up, so he's going to be on top of a pillow. We use zigzags to draw a pillow. Okay. Little thinner zigzags give me texture. Now I just got to choose if my tail is going to be curling up. I'm going to draw the thicker zigzag to give the volume of the couch. Thinner zigzags for the tail, and I'm going to give them volume by drawing around. I'm going to use these overlapping shapes to separate my head from my body. And I'm going to make my ears down so that it feels like the character might be sleeping. Right. Then, if I draw my kitty sleeping, he's going to be sleeping. So I'm going to draw my eyes. Sleeping. And I open up this line so that the body and the head connect to each other, creating an illusion of a simpler character, like a little potato chip. A little baked potato. And that would be the way that I would represent a little sleepy kitty. My friends, please do not forget to go check out the course. If you feel like you learned a lot today, or you learned a little today, you would benefit a ton from this course, okay? And when you do, come share your stuff with me so that I can share it with you, so that I can share it with my followers, so that I can showcase the people what you guys do, how you guys do it. Perspective, this would call for the shadows being. So do not ever fret. Your good old teacher Rodgon is here to help you. Okay. So my friends, I do believe that are we going over time right now? I don't want to keep you guys kidnapped for too long. But how to draw faces of cats and dogs. So if we're drawing cats or dogs, it's going to be very similar in concept. The dogs are going to have bigger snouts. It's going to make it look like a dog. Right? If you draw the smaller snouts, it's going to look like a kitty. So small snouts equals dogs. Big snouts equal smaller kitties. Big ones, doggies. Okay. Could be the same ears. Maybe not downward ears, because the rounder the ears, I guess, that would take away the kitty feel. All right. Yay, I see all the chat. Ah, I just saw the chat. You guys are awesome. But yeah, as we build up, we can start drawing different animals, different shapes, different forms, and eventually you'll be able to control it a lot better to be able to draw animals in whatever shape and form you want. It's going to take a little practice, but it's not very difficult once you understand the tricks. It's going to be much more about your patience and your practice. What is it? How long is the deal running for on 21 Draw? We are going to be running it for about 15 hours. So if you're going to be doing it, it's an Easter thing. So if you want to jump on it, kind of like a Black Friday thing, you got to jump on it as soon as possible before the time ends. Any other questions? So these variations can be changed a lot too. How do you draw a sitting dog? Well, whenever you're drawing a dog, right, the bottom of their bodies is going to have their thighs. Their thigh comes back and then it comes forward. So it kind of lies pretty flat on the floor, right? Whenever you're drawing a dog and they're standing up or they're on the back, it's going to be a very similar concept. They have their rib cages and they have their bodies coming up from there. Shoulders, arms. But they also, a lot of the times, they're represented differently. They're just represented with their arms down. Their shoulders and everything are on the side, right? So whenever you're drawing things for animals, a really easy trick that you can do is divide the bodies into three. If you divide the bodies into three, you have access to knowing where their little arms and stuff like that on the side are. And then this part right here becomes where the head is. So learning how to draw animals from the front and how they sit is about learning how controlling those threes. The legs and everything will always come from those sections. So as you sit them down, you end up in interesting positions. And that's with most animals. You can do the same thing for horses. You can do the same thing for most animals. Okay? Their body parts come from the sides. So it's going to be a very predominantly useful thing to know. Okay, so I'm saying, what bird shape, be more of an oval or a circle? Depends on the bird. It really depends on the bird. So if the bird is more like if you draw a circle, more circular, depends on like how you want to draw the head, right? There will be birds that are more circular, and that's perfectly fine. There's birds of all shapes and sizes. A lot of the times you eliminate that line in between and you get yourself a little bird. There's birds that are long, there's birds that are short, there's birds that have like different shapes, and they all are perfectly okay. So birds come in all shapes and sizes. Penguins are birds. They have a very torpedo-like a shape. Then you have things like flamingos that have a very interesting shape. Right? So they're not necessarily circles or that. It really does depend on the bird because birds come in all shapes and sizes. Okay. There's birds that have like mega things like the hummingbird, you know, where they have like super big wings and their heads are essentially fused to their bodies. Right? You have more like parakeets and stuff that have more like a little beanbag type of look. Things like different ones, cockatoos, stuff like that. Anything that you can come up with, essentially, once you know the tricks, you will be able to draw them. And then later on, when you want to make them into something cool, maybe you just don't want to keep them as birds. You want to make them like a biker gang. Don't mess with me. Oh. Right? When you want to do more with your art, you'll be able to do so. Okay. Any other questions, my friends? Any other questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace, because we are running out of time. But overall, what I would like to tell you guys in general is that drawing animals like we have today is not going to be incredibly difficult. The concept behind them is very similar in nature. You're going to see so much reappear over and over when it comes down to drawing animals. Tonight, we drew bunnies. We drew more of the understanding of them. We learned to draw the anatomy behind it. We understood the differences between humans and animals. We then established a little bit about how snouts work, how ears work, how fur works, how textures work, how we can use our zigzags effectively to be able to do this stuff. We learned a little bit about structure, about how to move our animal heads and how to distinguish between species. We learned how to draw things with more fluidity, combining the elements of two different animals. In this case, having something like a little dog and having something along the lines of the snake for the body is what gives you the elements of something like a ferret. Right? So being able to combine elements between two different species to create different things is really fun. You can do that with fantasy characters as well. And we also learned how to draw a bunch of different species. You guys asked as many questions as you could, and I absolutely love you for it. We also learned how our style works. We went into more intellectual, in-depth things. So today, we learned a lot. But you know what? You could learn a lot more. You could learn to draw a lot more if you just sign up for the classes and you join 21 Draw. And not just from me, but from countless other artists that have dedicated their lives to teaching. So if you have any questions about the course or about anything, please let me know now, because this is your best time to do so. But if you feel like learning from teachers that are dedicated, come join us. We're a good bunch. Eventually, you'll get so comfy drawing these techniques that you'll be able to create pretty much anything that you feel like much, much easier. You will not be subjected to the limitations of style, perspective, or construction. And you'll be able to have a lot more fun drawing your characters, be it for animation, be it for your own personal projects or comics, anything in general. It's going to be a lot easier just because you understand. And understanding is half the battle. Actually, understanding is 90% of the battle. So, any other questions, my friends? How do you draw an open mouth with a 4-quadrant mouth? Well, if you wanted to open your mouth for the quadrants, you already have the top of your mouth, right? That is the top of your mouth. That's not changing. Now, the bottom of your mouth, normally it just comes back and it connects, right? This is going to be the very basics. Your animal is going to have a jaw structure. So if you just draw a line to wherever you want that mouth to go, if you want it to be small, you don't have to draw it so big, right? And then from there, wherever the end is, you go and you connect it to the other side of that. So this has two sides. It has this side and the other side. You need to learn how to just connect them and let that line overlap. So what you're essentially doing is you're taking a circle, you're touching one side to another side, and you're drawing around. You're drawing around, giving yourself a little Pac-Man shape, right? That little Pac-Man shape is going to have your nose and your snout, and that is how you learn to use that. Once you have this and you have your basic shape, you got to learn to draw a Pac-Man mouth. So once you have a shape and you know where your mouth is going to be the limit, you can touch that limit to the other side, and you have yourself an open mouth. So Pac-Man mouths are very, very useful. Once you draw your shape, you can draw Pac-Man inside, right? And then you can draw yourself your mouths. Your mouth will extend out as much as you need to, but at the core of it, it's just a little Pac-Man. And you can learn to draw your characters like that. A quadrant doesn't break. Outside, inside, outside. So that is how you would draw the snap within that space. Any other questions, my friends? So you found your midline, your snout, right? You find the limitation of your mouth, and then you bring it back around, overlap into the middle of the snout if you need to find the other side, and have yourself your mouth. What's the movie called? Wait, what's what movie called? Okay, sorry. I do apologize. I have terrible ADHD. So what about a fur on a dog's face? Zigzags. Zigzags. Your zigzags will be everything. Your zigzags can make something look furry, can make something look not furry. You can make the bottom of the mouth look furry as well. You can make every part of the body look furry if you wanted to. So it all depends on what look you want to create for your character. Right? Do you want to create more fur? Create bigger zigzags. If you want to create less fur, create smaller zigzags. But those zigzags are going to determine how furry or how not furry your character is. Does that make sense? I think so. Any other questions? Little zigzags are so key to animals, incredibly useful to animals. They're one of the most significantly problematic areas for most people. Most people do not understand how to use zigzags, so therefore they struggle by drawing snouts and fur and hair, because that's also a skill that relates itself to hair whenever you're drawing humans. All right. Any other questions, my friends? So we go over turtles, we go over animals like doggies and cats, and pretty much every single animal that's a pet. I do believe we have 10 more minutes left in our stream. So if you have any questions, you have that time to ask. Okay, you have 10 minutes to ask me anything you guys want that you are curious about the stream stuff, or about the Hulu course, or about animals, or anything in general. So please make your opinions heard so that I can help you out before our time runs out. And don't forget to go check out the sale over on 21 Draw.
Hey, Rod. So we
Yeah.
have no more questions from the audience. So I think this could be
Oh,
a wrap.
perfect. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for being my students for the last hour and a half, or a little bit over 2 hours, or a little bit under 2 hours. But I hope that you all learned a lot about drawing animals. I hope that you all learned a lot about how to create the illusions that we want and how to make your hallucinations from your head a little bit clearer. May you all have a wonderful time, have a lovely weekend, and make sure to check out that sale. If you do feel like getting this course, you will absolutely level up, and in a way that makes sense, is comprehensive to absolutely everyone, even if you have not drawn before. So take care. I'll see you guys next time, and I hope that you guys all go out and learn as much as possible. Take care, everybody. See you guys later.